Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So Lin Dunn just cannot seem to stop. Every time she speaks publicly, it feels like she's planting more and more seeds about the possibility of moving on from Caitlin Clark. And the way this is starting to look, Caitlin Clark would be traded away from the Indiana Fever before Stephanie White is ever shown the door. That's the message a lot of people are taking away from what Lin Dunn is saying. Now, Lin Dunn recently appeared on a panel with other coaches and executives, and what she had to say immediately caught people's attention. The comments might not have been directly about Caitlin Clark, but they certainly got people talking. When you hear someone discuss difficult decisions involving star players and how sometimes organizations have to make moves for the sake of culture, people are naturally going to connect the dots. That's why so many fans are paying close attention right now. Some are even convinced that Caitlin Clark could eventually end up with the LA Sparks. The speculation is growing, and the conversation isn't slowing down. Whether you agree with it or not, Lin Dunn's remarks are adding fuel to the fire. As she talked about previous situations where she had to move on from star players, she emphasized that those choices are never easy. But according to her, there are moments when organizations believe those decisions are necessary for the bigger picture. That's the part that has everyone buzzing. And here's the thing. Dan Dakich didn't just wake up one day and start saying this stuff for no reason. Dan Dakich has been talking about these concerns, and now people are looking at Lin Dunn's comments and wondering if there's more to the story. The writing is on the wall for many fans, and that's exactly why Lin Dunn's words are drawing so much attention.
Planning on trading Caitlin Clark. Let's start with, hold on, I want to make sure. Let's start with SOT 4. This is Lin Dunn 2 days ago on the Daily Coach podcast.
In the corporate world, in the coaching world, in all the worlds, you know, your culture is so important to the foundation of what you do. It's who you are, it's what you do, it's why you do everything. And it's constantly important that you are emphasizing it, that you're staying consistent, that you're communicating clearly what these values are, the expectations. Everybody is on the same page. Everybody feels valued. And I think that's one of the things leaders probably don't spend enough time with. What am I doing today to make sure everybody in my group, top to bottom, feel important, feel valued, feel like they're part of the team? Have I said thank you enough? Have I appreciated them enough? What am I doing to make everybody feel a part? I do want to say one thing, though. I thought of something when Carol was talking about letting her player go. I had to let a superstar go one time for academic reasons, and it was tough, and she couldn't stand me. I had to kick her off the team. She left the school.
Lin Dunn, 2 days ago, on some podcast with 130 some odd subscribers, telling a story about having to let a superstar go and talking about culture and blah, blah, blah. We're being set up. They've made the decision. And Lin Dunn may not be the bad guy in this deal, but I just want to let you know the decision has been made. The Indiana Fever are trading and moving on from Caitlin Clark, and they're getting the messaging out. I showed you yesterday, Lin Dunn with her mouthpiece, Dan Dakich. We talked about that yesterday. Maurice and I on this show with her mouthpiece. Lin Dunn out doing the work herself. Now I want to play you the host of that show. She says all this about kicking off a superstar and what she had to do in college and how the play, you know, if we played the rest of the clip, you know, how the superstar in college thanked her later for doing this. 20 years later, she returned to Lin Dunn and said, "Oh, I thank you. I would have never been the player. I would have never got my degree had you not kicked me off the team." Here's the host, Josh Chambers, following immediately in on what Lin Dunn just said. Listen to Josh Chambers.
So many people watching this right now will benefit or will run into that problem where their superstar, their best player, does something or something occurs and they're faced with a hard question or decision. How do I treat this? And I think We've all been on teams at some point, or will at some point, where we start to almost have anxiety or fear that decision could have a negative impact for the team, and you start to weigh your moral responsibility to other players and then predict out future outcomes, and you almost can spiral from there. And so
the smear campaign against Caitlin Clark didn't start because of her shooting, her defense, or even her turnovers. In the eyes of many fans, it started the moment she pushed back and defended herself during this whole Stephanie White situation. That's when the conversation seemed to shift. That's when it stopped being strictly about basketball and started becoming something else entirely. And when you listen closely, everything keeps coming back to one word: behavior. Lin Dunn just talked about how some of the toughest decisions in basketball involve trading players, cutting players, and moving on from players. She explained that those decisions can be difficult, but sometimes organizations believe they have to make them. And according to her comments, a lot of those situations come back to behavior and culture. Now think about what Dan Dakich has been saying about Caitlin Clark. He didn't just criticize her game. He didn't stop at saying she takes bad shots. He went much further than that. Dan Dakich called Caitlin Clark a diva. He used the D word. He called her a dick. He talked about her attitude. He talked about her behavior. He portrayed her as someone who constantly argues with referees and creates problems. Meanwhile, Stephanie White was presented as someone with a great system and a great culture. That's why so many people believe these comments are connected. This smear campaign has gone way beyond basketball. It isn't just about whether Caitlin Clark can play defense. It isn't just about shot selection or turnovers. The focus has increasingly been on Caitlin Clark's personality and her behavior. Critics have described her as a loose cannon. They've called her toxic. They've questioned her mentality. They've even extended those criticisms to her fan base. And now, Lin Dunn is discussing difficult decisions involving star players and culture. That's why some fans believe Lin Dunn is planting the seeds. When you connect Lin Dunn's comments with what Dan Dakich has been saying, many people see a narrative forming around Caitlin Clark and her future. Not only that, but we also had Michael Thompson, NBA legend, and the father of Caitlin Thompson, adding to the conversation. When you hear comments like, "I hear the Fever are sick of Caitlin Clark. Y'all hearing that too?" It raises a lot of questions. People don't just start saying things like that out of nowhere. Then you look at Lin Dunn appearing on this panel. Most people probably never even heard of the channel before this, yet Lin Dunn is discussing situations involving difficult roster decisions, behavioral issues, and moving on from players. Naturally, that gets people talking. We've said for a long time that the Indiana Fever don't always look like a team built around Caitlin. At times, it feels like they're trying to create something that works without her. Now, compare that to Corey Close, the UCLA national champion coach, who also coached Caitlin Clark in the past, speaks about Caitlin Clark in a very different way. That's what makes the contrast between Corey Close, Lin Dunn, and Stephanie White so interesting.
And we do have, like you pointed out and I said earlier, the fandom party, where everyone decides who's a good coach and how to coach Caitlin and how not to coach Caitlin. There's so much resentment right now in the league right now between is she great for the league or is she not great for the league? Did the league exist before her or is it only existing post-Caitlin? And look, I mean, teams are figuring out who she is out there, both on offense and on defense. The stat that I saw was that she's been the defender on 42 isolations this year, more than double any other player, because teams are figuring out how to slow her down on defense. At the same time, she leads the team in steals. She leads the team in assists. It's, by the way, Kelsey Mitchell who leads in points with 0.5 more than she does. But she is the impact player that everyone wants her to be, but she has to allow herself to be coached too. That is why there is a coach there.
Well, and they have a really good coach. I mean, Stephanie White has proven that she knows what she's doing. I think that's going to come along with time. We are still really early. There's going to be a lot of changes that still take place. But I want to go back real quickly to what you said, Sarah. I think that if you're going to invest, if you're going to invest one way, you have to have the whole organization level up. Publicists, but I would also say marketing. I would also say in-game experience. I would, all of those things have to come together. Otherwise, it's really going to be a poor stewardship of that. And I think we're seeing that more and more, which I think is very important. And your stat about, the isolations. I mean, that's what you do. You find your right matchup. You see it in almost every sport. And so, there's schemes to respond to that. That is not her strong suit. It never has been. This is not a new thing, right? This is not like all of a sudden we're going to ask her to get better at her defense. But she does so many other things at such an elite level. You're scheming to how to cover up that other part.
I look at this from the lens of my experience covering the NBA, and it just reminds me of the first couple years that Kobe Bryant was in there and he was battling with Phil Jackson and with Shaq. He didn't seem to want to have a vet take him under his wing. Shaq really wanted to be that vet. He pushed back on it. And for several years, Kobe was deemed uncoachable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it.
Well, when you look at Kobe and what do we people say, the Mamba mentality, that
was not there the first couple years.
That came with maturity. That came with experience. That came with, okay, I'm going to fail, but now I'm going to learn to fail forward. And so, I think we have to understand that, she's got an unbelievable superpower. I mean, I coached Caitlin Clark for 2 summers in USA Basketball. She's got, her confidence is incredible, and her ability to take something on her back, to seize a moment, is unlike many things we've ever seen. But she's just starting, and I think with maturity, we'll be seeing that as more of a strength. Right now, when you use a strength too much, it becomes a weakness.
What I was just going to say is that I think she also has to...
At some point, it starts to feel like people are spending more time figuring out how to cover up the bigger issue than actually addressing it. We finally saw the Indiana Fever make some adjustments during the Atlanta Dream game, and the results were noticeable. But the question remains, what took so long to get there? That's why I don't think all of these comments are just random coincidences. You have Michael Thompson making comments, you have Lin Dunn making comments, then you have Corey Close entering the conversation as well. When you start hearing similar themes from multiple directions, people are naturally going to pay attention. And let's be honest, Corey Close has already accomplished a lot. She's a national champion at UCLA, and after years of recruiting and dealing with NIL, maybe she's interested in a different challenge. Maybe a WNBA opportunity could eventually make sense. Maybe that opportunity could be with the LA Sparks if Caitlin Clark ever ended up there. Corey Close has coached Caitlin Clark before, and that's why people continue connecting those dots. That's what makes all of this so interesting. Meanwhile, Lin Dunn continues making comments that many fans interpret as laying the groundwork for future decisions. A growing number of people believe Caitlin Clark would be moved before Stephanie White. Get down in those comments and let me know what you think. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share the channel.